Good day, everyone, no matter where you're located in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I did a live chat probably a couple days ago, and one of the questions that came up was, how do you deal with a negative employee? And so I thought about it, and I wanted to address it. I just didn't see it till after the chat. So dealing with a negative employee, there's many things you can do when you have someone who's constantly negative and constantly just always have a pessimistic outlook. So first things first, you treat all your employees the same, regardless of their attitude, their performance. You do not outcast them, treat them like an outcast. You make sure you treat them just like everybody else. So firmness and fairness across the board. There's no favoritisms. You show them the same respect that you show anyone else. You give them the same attention as you give everyone else. Because again, you do not want them to feel a certain kind of way and give them excuse to be negative. Another thing you can do is look inward first. Start with yourself. Make sure that you are not part of the problem. That is something that you need to analyze to make sure. But also in the process of that, you have to have self-awareness. So you have to look at yourself in the most transparent way and identify any flaws, strengths, or weaknesses that you may have that may be contributing to this negative employee. So that is something that you also have to consider. So make sure you keep that in mind. Another thing you have to do really is find the root of the problem. Find the root of the problem, because the problem may not always be work related. The problem could be something in their personal life, something that they may have going on that you may not be aware of, and it may be causing their work performance to decline and them to have a negative attitude. So before you decide to, do something that you will probably regret, try to get to the root of the problem. That's only fair. And sometimes, I get it, they may not let you in, and that's perfectly okay. But if that happens, still let them know that you're going to be there for them regardless if they need you for something. So you're still going to give them all the effort that you would give anybody else. So you have to be supportive. You will be supportive always. But at the same time, be supportive the same across the board. If you have your highly motivated employees who do what they're supposed to do, and they're very optimistic about things, well, you treat them just like them. So you make sure you give all of them the support across the board. One of the biggest downfalls is communication. So you have to properly communicate what your objective is, what do you want, what your desire is, or what your desired outcome is. But you also have to make sure they understand what you're communicating. So in other words, what you can do if you give them specific instructions, well, ask them to explain what you just explained to them to make sure they have a clear understanding of your expectations. If you don't do that, then you're part of the problem. You have to keep that in mind, because you can tell me something, and in my mind, I think that it's perfectly okay. I think I get it. And if you don't ask me, I'm going to go do what I think you want me to do. And in turn, if that is the case and it's wrong, then you should have verified that I understood exactly what you wanted me to do. So communication goes both ways. So just as you communicate, you got to make sure it's received the right way. So you have to verify from the recipient that they completely understand what you're asking. Give feedback. Give feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. How do you give that feedback may be different for every employee. And this is when it comes to knowing your employees and knowing how they operate, what makes them tick, things of that nature. Because some you can be more direct with and they'll get it and understand it and perform. Others may not receive that directness the same. So you have to, again, know your employees and make sure you solicit feedback and give feedback. And there's nothing wrong with the supervisor asking, what can I do differently? Where am I weak at? What can I improve? And they may not always tell you the truth, but some will. So throw it out there on the table. Give them the opportunity to tell you what's wrong with you. So offer them that. So if the negative employee has a problem, if they're always complaining about this, that, and the other, fine. Tell them, if you got a problem with this, this, and this, give me a solution. Give me a solution. If you disagree with how this is done, this is done, this is done, what is your solution to solve these problems? So throw it back at them too. So that way, when you throw it back at them, that makes them feel a part of the process if they really are interested and really care about solving the problem. They can complain. Well, people complain all the time. But when you complain, do you have a solution to fix what you're complaining about? Again, so I know some of this, someone said this is hard. It is hard sometimes, but repetitiveness is what makes it easy over time. Easy over time. And again, bottom line, you have to know your employees because sometimes you cannot approach everybody the same. You have to learn to navigate the proper way to approach those employees. And again, the more you have to know. Also, make sure everyone is heard. Give everyone that voice. Give them a voice to be heard. If it's in a forum or individual or something like that. And someone said, what if leadership don't have clear expectations and it's contradictory? Well, leadership needs to get clear expectations of their understanding. So if the leaders are not sure, well, if you are the person who's in charge and you're not sure, you have to go seek the clarity. You have to get it because what you give to them normally comes from the top. And if you are not clear, you cannot expect them to understand if you don't understand. So keep that in mind. Also, again, make sure everyone is heard, give them a voice, make them all feel included and part of the process. And that's part of becoming a team. That is part of becoming a team. Also, keep this in mind. If you have a negative employee, I'm always a firm believer that no matter where you are on a tier, you have to sometime go down to where they are and take them where you want them to be. Sometimes that is not easy. Sometimes that you may not can reach everybody, which is fine. But when that happens, utilize your resources. So utilize one of their peers, a counterpart, someone who they can relate to even more, and talk to that individual and say, hey, this person is very negative all the time. You two seem to have a good relationship. Maybe you can find out what the root of the problem is and see how we as an organization or me as a leader can help this individual. So sometimes you may not do it directly, but you can do it indirectly. So utilize all your resources. Give praise. There's nothing wrong with giving praise to individuals for good work. Even if it's something simple, give them praise, make them feel appreciated. Sometimes, depending on their tasks, you want to highlight their strength. You don't always want to give someone tasks where you know they're not strong at. So if you give me a bunch of tasks that I know these are my weak areas, I'm not going to go into that task too competent. So I might be a little insecure because I know I'm weak in these areas. You know I'm weak in these areas, but you want me to be responsible. Focus on my strengths. And then in the process of focusing on my strengths, help me build my weaknesses. Again, utilize resources. Send me the educational courses if it's, if your organization allows it, or give me tips, give me advice, counsel me more, something like that. And the last thing I want to talk about is helping this employee work as a team. You are a unit. You are as strong as your weakest link. You must come together as one. It's not always about having the best people on a team. If you got the best people, if you're not working together, then your team is not going to do well. It's going to fail in many cases. So keep that in mind. So I just wanted to throw that out there to address that individual's question. And that is, or should I say, those are some ways you deal with negative employees. And just because they're negative doesn't mean they're bad employees. So again, you don't give up on them. You make them feel appreciated, and even love for that matter. Let them know that, I like to make people feel that being at work is being with family. And that's how I like to make it feel. Now, granted, you still have those lines and those boundaries, but you still can make them feel like family. You can treat them as such at the same time and make them have that same feeling when they come to work, or if they log in, they work remotely, or whatever the case. So that's pretty much what I'm going to conclude. I'm kind of looking through the chats right now before I close to make sure I don't miss anything. It is not possible to change the mindset. I completely disagree with that. It is possible. If you go into it with a negative attitude saying it's not possible, well, then it's not possible. But if you believe in your heart of hearts that it's possible, then it is possible. So if you have that kind of mentality already, well, what do you expect your team members to have? If you're going there and say what's not possible and you cannot change a mindset, then you're part of the problem. I'm going to just be blunt about it. You are part of the problem. So you have that negative mentality as well. So if you have that negative mentality, expect your team to have that negative mentality. You can't be a person in charge and be negative and be pessimistic. You have to be optimistic. You are the one who set the tempo and the culture of that organization. Now, granted, you may not control the whole organization, but you can control your particular element. You can control what you can control. So I want you to think twice about believing that you cannot change the mindset. If you don't believe it, no one else is going to believe it. But I firmly disagree with that, and I'm going to be blunt about it. Anything else before I close this chat? Again, I'm reading through some of the comments right now. Okay. I'm just going through just to make sure I don't miss anything. How do you make them feel like family? Well, how do you make somebody feel like family? How do you make your family feel like family? Well, so you do things. You do family things. So in work, you can have work outings. You can have get-togethers, or you all can sit together and do lunch and not talk about work. You can kind of build that camaraderie amongst each other. You can sign them and create team projects, maybe not for the whole team, but you may want to break them up into groups. So if you have a team of 10, you might want to break them up into 3 groups and then make it a competition and then switch the teams around. So everybody can get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses and teach each other how to build those strengths and weaknesses and to build the capacity and the strength of your team. So make them feel a part of everything. So that is how you create a family and make them feel like a family. Anything else before I close? I'm just reading through the chats just to make sure I don't miss anything. So please take this to heart. Again, you are the one who set the culture. You may not set the culture for the organization, depending on where you fall on the chain, but you set the culture for your team. Sometimes you have to keep the toxicity out of it. So, and I get sometimes the senior leadership may have a lot of things going on that filters down, but you need to shield them from what you can shield them. Protect them what you can protect them from. Sometimes you got to be the punching bag and take the blunt of a lot of things so they don't have to deal with it. That is your job as a leader. That is your job as a supervisor. It's not always fun. It's not always pleasant, but you're not in it. You're not in it to be happy all the time. You're in it for your blood, sweat, and tears, and to suffer sometime and feel pain and take the pain for your team. That's what you're in it for. You're in it for the love of your team. You're in it for them as a whole, because a lot of times you have to put them first. They are first. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes it might keep you up at night. But at the end of it, what is your impact on them? How are you able to influence them? What did you protect them from? That is your job and responsibility of a leader. Anything else before I close this chat? I just want to make sure. And Tony, you're correct. We all have demons. Everyone does. Everyone does. And I'm glad you made that comment, because you triggered another thought in my head. We all have something. In the process of taking care of your team and trying to help your negative employees, you also have to take care of yourself. Your mental health is just as important as everybody else's. If you are mentally unable and mentally capable of taking care of your team, then you have to stop and do a factory reset and take care of yourself. Take a day. I said it in one of my previous chats. I give my team a mental health day once a month. I give them, take one day off to go do what you want to do. You can sit at home and look at TV. You can go bowling. You can go to the golf course. It is your day to do whatever you want to do, to decompress. Sometimes you got to give that to them to make sure that they're in the right headspace. And again, if you know your people, you can see when something is something is wrong, or when their work performance is starting to change, or their output is not as quality as it used to be. These are things that you will notice. And in turn, when this happens, some of these employees turn negative because of it. So pay attention to them and make sure you pay attention to yourself. Okay. Well, I appreciate you all. Again, someone asked me also to try to, if I could do more live chats. I'm working on it. You know, I have a busy life too. My days are full, but I at least want to start giving you more time here and there. So in the process, if you have any questions, you can put them in a live chat, and maybe I'll do a live chat about it, or you can send me a personal message, which someone did, and ask me a question there, and I'll answer you directly. And if it's something that I think may help the masses, I may do a live chat about that as well. So again, I appreciate you all for supporting the page. Don't worry, Nola, you just got here. This will be on my timeline, so you can start it from the beginning and watch it from the very beginning. And that goes for those who just got here. You can watch it from the beginning. Other than that, let me see. What if the leader with the negative? See, I'm trying to read these, but the comments are coming in. What if a leader with a negative mindset joins the organization and has a toxic culture? How does a manager between the leader and the staff manage and turn things around? Sometimes, as I told you, when you have that negativity up top, it has to come down. You got to determine what you're going to filter and how you're going to filter that. You got to determine what will make it to your staff and what doesn't. And then the things that do make it to your staff, how are you going to spin it and give it a positive outcome? Because sometimes when you have someone who may come in negative, it may not be that they're coming in negative. It's just that they may be trying to change the tone of the culture or set a new tone and be more aggressive up front. And that's not always the case, but find out what the intent is of that individual or those new individuals are. Find out what their intent are, what their goal is, and what their mission is. Find out that and see how you can support that to help offset some of that negativity. Anything else? I was only supposed to do this for like 6-7 minutes, but that's okay. I don't mind. Do we have books on this? I'm sure there are books out there somewhere that you can find. I never looked for one. Shelly, you said, what does my shirt say? I'm going to show you. It said eracism. Now, that's kind of self-explanatory. Hopefully, I wouldn't have to explain that one to somebody, but that's what my shirt says. Anything else? How to talk to a subordinate much older than you? Oh, that's a good one. And that if they don't listen, that's interesting, right? So when you have those people who are much older than you, a lot of them, let's be honest, are set in their ways, for one. For two, some of them may not have the initial respect for you because they may be old enough to be your parent, right? So they already have barriers put up. And that's okay. How do you get through those barriers? Well, communication. Make them feel part of the process. Let them know you're consistent, because these are their own internal feelings that they're feeling. It has nothing to do with you or what you did or what you're going to do. It is them dealing with the fact that you are their supervisor and they have children older than you, or whatever the case may be. That is their personal problem, but you treat them like everybody else. Make them feel part of the team. Stay consistent. Talk to them. Find out get inside their head and get them talking. And it doesn't have to be, so a lot of times when you want to pull things out from people, keep work out of it. Just have a general conversation. Because when you approach somebody with the work mentality, sometimes they're already on the defensive and not only going to let you in so far. But if you go there and just start talking, how's the family? Do you have kids? Oh, you have one in college. What school does he or she go to? Try to find a common ground. And they say, okay, this person goes to Michigan. And then if that clicks for you, say, you know what? I had a sister went to Michigan. They found it great, whatever the case may be. So find all of the things that you have in common with that individual. And what that would do over time, and you completely chip away at them, it will break down that barrier. And this person will actually start to see you for your true colors of who you are and how you really come in there with the most authentic intent to help them versus them having barriers up and allowing them to come down. So hopefully that helps that. Any other questions? I'm just going through just to make sure. And I'm sure I will miss some. And if I miss some, trust me, I will read through this later. I definitely will read through this later. So forgive me if I missed your question. It's just that a lot of them are coming at the rapid rate. So, okay. Thank you all. So I'm going to conclude this chat now. Again, for those who just came in on it, you will be able to watch it from the beginning because it will be on the timeline. But again, I thank you all for supporting the page. You can share this with whoever you want. Hopefully they can get a better understanding. But again, thank you all for joining and meeting in. I am one day, again, I think my very first live chat, I actually scheduled it. So that way everybody knew it was coming. I'm going to try to do that again. I just have to find time in my schedule. So that's why a lot of times you get the pop-up live chats. But again, hopefully you find them worthwhile. But again, thank you for your time. And again, for those who just got here and wonder what my shirt says, I'm going to let you see it again. That's what it says. So now you know. So again, thank you all, and you all have a great day.